Welcome to another episode of Relentlessly Resilient, where real people share real-life experiences and the tools they've developed to move forward and live their best life. I'm Michelle Scharf.
And I am Jennie Taylor. And you guys, listen, we have a very special program, not just today, but for 4 weeks in a row, focusing on Memorial Day. And really quick, the school teacher in me is going to jump in here and help make sure you know what Memorial Day is and what Memorial Day is not. First, Memorial Day is not Veterans Day. So that's kind of the two holidays we want to distinguish between. Veterans Day, of course, is the day to honor all men and women in uniform who have served in the military, past, present, foreign, abroad, wherever. Memorial Day has its roots in the Civil War. It has its roots in battles like Gettysburg. It has its roots in the fallen military men and women who have died while serving our country. And so very distinguished day. The Day of Remembrance is what it used to be called, Day of Decoration, where they would decorate the graves. And so what we really want to focus on today and for these next 4 weeks is Memorial Day, honoring, in this case, 4 men who have served our country and who have died while wearing the uniform of our country, and then the great legacies they've left behind in the form of their families, their friends, and their communities. And so, now that you know what Memorial Day is, I am really excited to introduce you all to my good friend, Krista Anderson. Krista, how are you today?
I'm well. How are you? I'm so grateful to be with you both.
Well, we are so excited to have you and your organization join us. So first thing, before we let you tell us your personal story, we want you to kick off this 4-week series, these 4 podcasts that will start with your series and then 3 more. Tell us about the organization you have, what you do every Memorial Day, and who these 3 upcoming interviews will be with. Can you give us kind of the 101 on that, Krista?
Definitely. So the Unquiet Professional was, and I'll get more into it, but was formed in 2013. My husband, Staff Sergeant Michael Harrison Simpson, was nicknamed the Unquiet Professional. Green Berets were known as quiet professionals, but he was so proud to be a Green Beret. His team and his company named him the Unquiet Professional because he just made it known wherever he was.
I love that.
Include just about every morning to me. Reminding me he wore a Green Beret.
There was nothing subtle about it.
No.
Okay, so what is it you're doing now in his honor and in the honor of the other people that you recognize? Why did you choose to use that name? I love it. The Unquiet Professional.
Well, I thought, what better opportunity? I mean, I could have named it, which I loved, right? The Staff Sergeant Michael Harrison Simpson Memorial Foundation, but I wanted it to be able to kind of almost be a secret. I mean, I know it's the Unquiet Professional, but you really have to get into it to know more about where the name came from. And it's always definitely a party story, I guess I would say, because it lightens the mood. Of course, you hear of the circumstances of the organization, but then I get to tell the funny part of it, and it brings back that kind of hope and light, and the humor, I guess, of who he really was, and his history of, just following his brothers and his father. His father is a plank holder, or a plank owner, I guess they would say, in the regiment, with 1st Special Forces Group, and his brother retired out of 1st Special Forces Group as well. So, and his other brother also serves in the Army, and so it just it gave me an opportunity to be able to serve everyone. And then kind of hide him in there along the way.
I love that. And you want to be unquiet about the service of these heroes, right? You want to take these great stories that most people in America don't really know about, and you want to give them a voice. So tell us what you do each Memorial Day and the families that you're honoring this year.
So in 2018, my dear friend Tessa Robinson, who founded Humans on the Home Front, asked me if she could do a virtual Memorial Day mile. And that's when it started. And she looked up the stories of fallen service members and she sent out, I think there was 450 registrants that year. And she sent out one service member for each person that registered. So she looked up and created these, she pulled from obituaries from Military Times Fallen, and she sent out the stories of these men and women to people who registered. And I'll be honest with you, I mean, she is a journalist and she is amazing. And I just couldn't keep up with that. That was, I tried the following year in 2019, I tried to do that. And one of the things that made me sad was some of the men and women that we looked up didn't have anything but their names, their unit, date of birth, date of death, and how they died. And I really wanted to be able to not only share the stories of our fallen service members, but share the stories of their families and how they are, one of our taglines is motivated by their lives. And to show that we're not just kind of, sitting in the darkness, that we're out there doing the work, kind of picking up and serving our community, not in the same capacity, but where they left off.
I love that, Krista. And that's what I love. I actually have never met you physically in person because we've only ever known each other through this COVID time. And we serve.
I can't believe.
Can you believe it? It feels like we're just old friends. But we serve together on a working group through the Department of the Army that's for survivors. And in the little time that I've known you, even virtually, I've seen just how tenacious you are in giving a voice to these families, to these heroes, to their stories, not just how and where they died, but how they lived and how they served. So each year, do you choose a handful to spotlight now? I know this year we're having 3 that, in addition to you, that we're going to interview and honor. So tell us how you find them, how you select them, and if you have anything particular you want to say about this year before we have you tell us your story.
So I generally know the families so far. Last year we had Sergeant First Class James Grissom. We had, who was actually killed a month before my husband. And I know their family well and love them. We had Tim McGill, Liam Nevins, and Josh Strickland, who were both killed on the same deployment. And then we honored my husband, Mike, last year as well. And this year we have, and I know you know the Pelham family, and I know you get to speak with all of them, but John Pelham and his family are just such a light. I mean, you'll probably hear me say that again, but over and over again. But, when I visualize, the darkness, I think that kind of settles in when you lose somebody so dear and so close to you. I can only visualize these families and the light kind of piercing through that darkness. And so the Pelham family is absolutely that light. And then we have Patrick Feeks, who is a Navy SEAL, and his wife, Emily, and his family. Just, again, I can't wait for you to hear their stories. And Major Philip Lombard was Air Force, and his wife, Linda, is again, I learned so much from her and her journey and just her resilience and her transparency. And tomorrow actually is the 10-year anniversary of Phil's death. And so I just can't wait for your community to hear their stories.
Well, I appreciate you letting us share these because this is, again, not a lot of us in America personally know someone who's died while serving in the military. Certainly, I would say in Utah, there's a lot of people who maybe don't personally know someone that's worn that uniform and paid that ultimate sacrifice. And so we appreciate what your organization is doing and has done for years in honoring these families and helping us to learn more than just, the data on their headstone, to really get to know them. So we're really excited, like you said, to hear the stories of these 3 families. We hope our listeners will pay really close attention these next weeks leading up to Memorial Day. But Krista, today it's your day, and we want to get to know you and Mike and your boys and your family. So can you paint us the picture of what life was like backing up, 10, 15 years, however many years you've got to go back? Tell us a little about your background, when and where and how you met Mike, and a little bit about his service and your story.
So I grew up in a little town with about 3,000 people in Massachusetts called Hamden. And I had no idea about the military. I mean, it didn't touch me. I don't ever remember giving it a thought. I lived blissfully ignorant, I guess I would say. And which I always appreciate people who are in that frame of mind, because, that gives me an opportunity to say, good, then our family did their job. If you are blissfully ignorant about everything that's happening out there, then that means we're doing a good job, right? As a military. And so years later, my cousin joined the Army, and he was getting ready to deploy to Iraq. And my aunt had a deployment party and said she needed help, driving the kids around. She invited his friends from around the country that he had served with. And Mike and my cousin had served in the Old Guard together in 2003. And so I had the opportunity to go and meet all of my cousin's friends and help my aunt kind of care for them throughout the week. And I'd like to say it was love at first sight, but I'm not sure it was at first sight. I think it took me a little bit because I looked at him as my little cousin's friend, at first.
Sure.
But
it's like the little brother.
Yeah, exactly. But fast forward, he had transferred from Washington State JBLM to Vilseck, Germany. And I went out to visit him in Germany for the weekend, Thanksgiving weekend. And I think we knew at that point, but then he was getting ready to deploy the following year, and we saw each other a few more times, whether I was in Germany or he came to the States. And then he deployed for 15 months. And in the middle of that was his brother David's wedding. And which actually they just celebrated their anniversary last week. And so he came home on mid-tour leave, and the evening of his rehearsal dinner asked me to marry him.
Oh, that is so sweet.
I know.
That's like sweet World War II style. Come home from war, get engaged, plan the wedding for after he gets back. So did you get married? Like, did you elope right away, or did he finish where he was and then come back later?
So as probably most service members, he was eager to get back to his unit, right? He was only on mid-tour leave, so he went back to Iraq. And we had considered eloping, and then I thought, my mother will kill me. I'm an only child.
Fair enough. She wants to be there.
Yes, exactly. But, I think when I knew exactly, and this was before he actually asked me to marry him, he gave his best man speech at the rehearsal dinner, I guess. And he looked at David and Kelsey and he said, be each other's compass. And he talked about how when the waters get rough and things start to get hard, look to each other for direction. And I thought, this silly, goofy, amazingly attractive man just stole my heart probably again and again and again in that moment.
Oh, I love that.
I love that you saw the depth that he had too, that he wasn't just goofy or nerdy or funny or whatever, that he also had depth. I love that.
He could be both.
Well, that's really when he showed it to me, I think.
Yeah.
And let's talk about, we need a t-shirt. We always talk about the t-shirts we need to make. Be each other's compass. That is beautiful marriage advice. That's beautiful family relationship advice. All right, Krista, we're going to hit pause for a quick second, take a break, and then come back and hear a little bit more about your life together with Mike. All right, Krista, he proposed. You said yes. He went back to Iraq, and then tell us what happened, how you began your lives together.
So he came back from Iraq 6 months later, and we attended his brother Isaac and sister-in-law Vanessa's wedding. And then a month later, we got married. So the Simpson family had a
That's
big
a lot
year.
of weddings. No kidding.
Yes.
Expensive.
Yeah, maybe eloping might have been such a bad thing.
Right. All three of their boys and their sister Abby just traveled around to each wedding, and she was grateful to do so. She was amazing.
Sweet. Okay, so you got married. Walk us through those first few years, his service, your family, your boys. Set the stage for when he deploys again.
Mm-hmm. So he actually had to go back to Germany. And so I went to visit him. So we went back to Germany in January, and I didn't go with him because otherwise he would have had to extend, and he was getting ready to attend the Special Forces qualification course. And so we figured we'd be apart for a few months, and then we'd transfer to Fort Bragg.
Together.
I went to go visit. Yeah, I went to go visit him in February.
What year?
Germany.
What year was this?
This was, let's see, we got married in 2008, so it was the beginning of 2009.
Okay, thanks.
And he went skiing for his birthday and broke his leg.
Oh, no.
So it took him a little bit longer to get back to the States because he couldn't necessarily go to the Q course with a broken leg. So
shoot.
August of that year, we got to Fort Bragg, and I was ready to pop. Michael was born actually in October. And he started, of course, dedicating himself to training and doing the SF qualification course. We had Michael, and he graduated with his Green Beret in March of 2011, and we headed out to Joint Base Lewis McChord, where he would serve with 1st Special Forces Group. And again, totally foreign to me. I was still kind of in the clouds. And then he would serve. He would be gone, probably 8 months out of the year. He was training. He was, whether it was CONUS or OCONUS, in the States, outside of the States. I remember one trip he was in the Maldives spearfishing with the Army there.
Oh, wow.
While I had two babies.
Meanwhile, when was your second boy born?
He was born in 2011, December of 2011. So okay. Michael was 2009 and Gabriel.
So a couple years apart. And so you're living in the state of Washington, and he's on assignments kind of everywhere, gone. I mean, it looks like more than half of the year. That's a lot of gone time. Okay. Yeah. So you've got these two sweet little boys. You're new to the military world. You're living on base. He's in and out of town.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we lived right outside of base, which actually, hindsight, I think I wish that we would have had that experience of living on base. I mean, we would have had to move, of course, within probably the first year. So that was good because we stayed around for a while longer. But I've never had the opportunity to live on base. And so that is definitely one, if I would call it a regret, that I have.
But you're in a military town anywhere near the base.
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So tell us what happens.
So I remember they were supposed to go to the Philippines, his company, and then it switched to Afghanistan, and all the other spouses were very, very upset. They had experienced deployments before. Mike and I, when he was in Iraq, we were together, but we weren't married. We didn't have children. It was much, much different.
Sure.
Right. And again, I had no idea what the world looked like.
You don't even know what you don't know.
Right. Which, again, in hindsight, I kind of wish that's how I looked at, this next deployment. But, that's why I don't watch the news, mind you. I try to shield myself from that. But, and so I wasn't worried. We had an opportunity to go down to Oregon for a few days. My mom came out and watched the boys, and then last minute, his parents decided to come for Easter, and my parents were there for Easter. We had family pictures. My girlfriend called and said, I have a cancellation. Would you like to come and do family pictures? Which was a week before he was deploying.
Wow.
And when you look back on it, I'm like, oh my goodness, God just put all the
details
in place.
Yeah. So this is spring. Is this spring of 2012 or 13?
This is 2013, April 6th, 2013, he deployed with 4th Battalion, Charlie Company, 1st Special Forces Group. And 8 years ago today, he rolled over an improvised explosive device while he was coming back from a mission with his team, and he was riding an ATV.
Okay, so let's back up a second. For those who are listening, this will air not the same day we record it. So his accident happened on April 26th, and he had deployed on April 6th.
Yes.
It hadn't even been 3 weeks.
Right.
So he'd probably only even been in country barely.
Right. Maybe 2 weeks.
Wow. Okay,
Maybe
so
2 weeks.
can you walk us through what that's like? Obviously, the injury was not immediately a death. Can you tell us a little bit about the events of the 26th and then the rest of that week?
So he was actually thrown back into the crater. I mean, I got the incident report, and of course I was told by all of his team, and they shared the story, shared the day with me and everything. And so sometimes I can close my eyes and picture as if I was there, in the moment. But he hit it was a pressure plate IED. The blast caused him to actually fly back into the crater. He landed in the crater of the blast.
Wow.
There was a lower right leg amputation, trauma to his right arm, and they didn't realize it at the time, but shrapnel had torn through his body and severed his pericardium, which is the sac around your heart.
Oh my gosh. But they didn't know that right away. So at the beginning, did they think he was injured and maybe needs to be medevaced, or did they know right away it would be fatal?
Yeah, well, no, gosh, they actually thought he would live. And I mean, they approached him and they had to have EOD, the Explosive Ordnance Disposal Unit, clear the area to make sure there wasn't any secondary devices. And so as they, most of the team that was able to actually be up there near him, of course, the medic and so on, they threw their tourniquets to him, and he actually put on his tourniquet on his right leg and his right arm himself.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I'm like, adrenaline must really be special.
So, but I mean, that shows he's alive. That shows he's conscious.
Yeah.
That shows he's at least thinking on a certain level of survival instinct, maybe.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Well, he briefed them. He said, I think I lost my leg. They confirmed. He said, okay, my back hurts a little, my hips hurt a little, I can breathe and I'm not dizzy. And so he just kept on giving them updates, and they moved him. They were able to get to him and then basically pack his wounds, tighten down the tourniquets. And, they had a little trouble getting him to the medevac because they had to transfer him. The medevac couldn't land where they were. And interestingly enough, my husband now, Gus, was the senior medic on their team, but was left back at the camp. And his junior was out there, did everything and anything that was supposed to be done. There was no, but he was able to throw a drone out and determined that they needed to move him in order for them to
evacuate.
Medevac.
So, Krista, what communication do you have at this point? Does someone from the unit call you and say, "Hi, Mrs. Simpson, there's been an incident," or?
So they called me on the 27th, my time. It was about 9:30 in the morning.
So a whole day has passed since he was injured, and you're and you get a call.
Yeah. So because he was injured, I got a call, and then about an hour later, officers came to tell me a little bit more and to talk to me a little bit about what the process was.
They did send someone in person after the phone call.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I'm so grateful I got that call. I mean, I was home. Gabriel had just gone down for a nap. Michael was entertained, and Jamie Alden, he's retired now, retired lieutenant colonel. And he just was so amazing and caring and compassionate, and just really giving me the information that I needed. And so then moving forward, I would meet with the command team every morning. I would just show up. I knew they were meeting at 9, so I showed up at 9:30. Everybody was around the table. the group surgeon, the chaplain, and the whole command team, and they were getting updates. I was getting updates from, we call it an 800 line, but it's where they update you on the medical.
Was he medevac to Germany?
He was actually in Bagram.
In Bagram, okay.
So he went to Ghazni, and then he went to Bagram, and they were waiting for him to stabilize in order for him to go to Germany.
To really travel. That makes sense.
Yeah. And so I couldn't leave for Germany, right? I get notified on Saturday morning. I don't leave for Germany until the following Tuesday at 1:00. And it felt like
100 years.
Oh, yeah. I can only imagine.
Okay, so here's a silly question. Did you have a passport, and was it needed to travel?
It was needed to travel, and I did have a passport. Thank the Lord.
I will tell you, in the moment, I got a phone call that someone was standing at my door to tell me about my husband's death. And in that moment, I didn't yet know if he was dead or alive. And one of my first thoughts was, I don't have an active passport. What if they've medevaced him to Germany? Anyway, side note.
Okay, I share that with
so you were getting ready to go visit, or you.
Yes. And so, of course, I wanted to leave right away. I wanted to leave on Saturday.
Like yesterday.
And one of the things that I share is like, trust the system, right? Because what I didn't know and what I didn't really understand, and maybe they didn't even understand to explain it to me, was that, and maybe they were afraid to explain it to me, is that once they put Mike on a plane from Bagram to bring him to Germany, the altitude could have killed him.
Oh, wow.
And then that plane would have just passed by Germany, and we would have been 2 planes passing in the night.
Uh-huh. Oh, my goodness.
Right? And I would have missed him in Dover.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, they're ready to make that transfer if they need to. And they did emergency surgery on the plane. But once they got him up there, they had to do emergency surgery, and they were able to stabilize him. Then orders were cut at 6 a.m. Tuesday morning.
What date? What date was Tuesday, Krista? What number day?
Tuesday was the 1st. Oh my goodness. I think it was the 1st.
Okay. So he'd been wounded. What day of the week was he wounded? I guess we'll just back up that way. We know it was the 26th of April, but do you remember what day of the week the injury was?
So the 26th of April was a Friday.
Okay. So you're basically waiting through the weekend. Time. Yeah. You're waiting through the weekend. You've got plans to jump on a plane and go overseas early the next week.
So I fly out our time on the 30th of April and arrive in Germany on the 1st.
Okay.
Which is when, now, mind you, there's, I fly over with my chaplain and my casualty assistance officer, just unbelievable human beings. My in-laws, Michael and Barbara, and then Mike's siblings, Isaac and his wife Vanessa, and David and my sister-in-law Abby. They all meet me there.
So when you say there, where did you meet?
So we flew into Frankfurt, and then we went over to Landstuhl Army Medical Center.
So all of you were able to meet in Germany.
Mm-hmm. David got a last-minute passport. He was the one that didn't have a passport, and luckily we were able to get him one.
Okay. So you're in Germany. Mm-hmm. It's now May 1st.
Mm-hmm.
And then what?
Now May 1st, and they did some tests, and Dr. Betts, he was from Texas, this neurosurgeon, Army neurosurgeon. He actually joined the Army late in life, I think in his early 50s, which I thought was incredible.
Yeah, wow.
Right? Talk about selfless service. And he said, "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but we've done all the tests and we've identified that your husband is brain dead."
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
And so we're talking over him, right? Our family is gathered around, and I said, "Can it heal?"
Oh, that just shows what fog and what shock you're in.
Yeah. I needed confirmation that there wasn't anything.
What he's telling you is that there's nothing left.
So at the actual accident, he was alert. He was putting on his tourniquets,
talking, giving updates on his own condition.
But he clearly, you said they were waiting for him to stabilize to move him to Germany, and this takes over a week. Were you able to talk to him between the time of his injury?
So on the medevac on the way to Ghazni from the, basically right after the accident, he finally got pain medication when he got on the medevac, and they had to puncture his lungs twice because his lungs were filling up because because
his heart was bleeding.
Yeah. And a couple of months after he passed, I got a message from someone who had spoken to one of the individuals that were on the medevac, one of the nurses or doctors, and said that he opened up his eyes really wide and he said, "Wife, kids, I love."
Oh.
And he went into cardiac arrest. And
okay,
he
stop.
Never spoke again.
Okay, Krista, we're going to stop right there because I kind of can't think past that for a minute. We're going to take a fast break, and then we want you to come walk us through what happens next and what's happened for now the last 8 years. We'll be right back. All right, Krista, you've just received the worst imaginable news after knowing your husband was injured and you think has avoided death. You've now been told he's brain dead and it's not going to heal. He's shared his last words were that he loves you and those boys. Can you tell us what happens now? You're in Germany. I don't even know what that looks like when not only is the deceased soldier overseas, but you and his entire family, you're all there. I imagine your boys are with your parents or someone else back in Washington. Walk us through maybe the next week.
So that was a Wednesday that he was declared. The following day, he donated his organs. So I got to play with him and sleep next to him. Those hospital beds are not big enough, by the way. But we made it work, and I got to be with him overnight.
They kept everything running to be able to donate those organs.
Yeah, exactly. And then we were just kind of waiting for, I had to fill out paperwork, of course, and waiting to figure out when he would be flown into Dover. And so we left on a Saturday and flew into Dover, and we were staying at the Fisher House. And then the Tuesday, May 7th, is when Mike was flown in, and there was some delays. He was supposed to fly in a little bit earlier, but there was some delays because 7 other men were killed.
Oh my goodness! So did you stay in Dover that entire week then?
Yes, we got there on Saturday. We actually left. I think we probably left on Wednesday or Thursday of that week. So almost a week. And the boys were with my parents at home in Washington, and our family, myself and Mike's parents and siblings traveled together. And then they went back to Texas or North Carolina, and I went back to Washington. We had a civilian service, which was the first time that I had met a lot of his teammates' wives.
Sure.
And it was Mother's Day.
Ugh.
I didn't even realize it until somebody had said something, and I thought, oh my goodness.
It's because you're just not even aware.
This on Mother's Day.
You're not even aware.
No.
Did you bury him in Washington? Did you bury him in Massachusetts? Did you bury him at Arlington?
Mike is laid to rest in Section 60 in Arlington National Cemetery. And it was the greatest honor, I think, to walk through that amazing place. There's so much peace there. And it was a gift. And he was buried on 30 May, which was the original Memorial Day, oddly enough.
Oh, wow. So think of all the symbolism and meaning in that. So, Krista, I wish we had like 6 hours to talk to you because I know we haven't even touched the iceberg, but I want to know, and to even ask you to do this sounds just ridiculous. Can you summarize the last 8 years? What have you learned? What's been helpful? What advice might you give someone who's helping someone else who's facing a new struggle of grief like this? How have you found resilience, and what does that look like in your life?
I've learned something new. Many things new every year. I feel like God has opened my eyes a little bit wider and wider every year to be able to see the gifts and the blessings and really being able to serve others, to be able to share my testimony and share what I've learned in terms of preparing for the unexpected, right? We had a will and powers of attorney and all of that put into place. And so I educate on that piece of it, right? Taking care of your family in life and in death, for both the spouse and the service member. And with the Unquiet Professional, we've been able to do many things. We're very small, and I love it to be that way because we get to lay hands on everybody we impact, and it's very healing for me. And the one term that I remember being at a women's conference once, and Nicole Reyes was her name, and she said, "There's nothing more beautiful than a community coming together and choosing you." And I thought, that's exactly how I felt, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I felt when everybody came together, wrapped their arms around me and supported me and my family. And I wanted to be able to pay that back. I wanted to be able to show others. And so for me, for example, for this Memorial Mile this year, honoring John, Patrick, and Phil, and sharing their lives and sharing the impact that the Pelhams and Emily and Linda have on the world. We have our sponsors that come in, right? Caliber Home Loans, Military Families Magazine has written articles on all of us, and different organizations have come in and provided different things. We have BKR with water bottles and De Espresso Libera with coffee, and Ivy Forge Design and maps. I mean, I'm definitely going to miss people, but we have an incredible military spouse that has a travel agency, Marvelous Mouse Travels, and she's really done all of the coordinating with the honorees and just gifts that people wanted to send them in honor of their service, right?
Wow. I love that you do this, and you do this every year.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes. And we've done it since 2018. It has definitely evolved to what it is today. But for me, I love to be able to show my kids that we're not the only ones, that we are among an incredible community of military families, that you don't have to be blood to be family, and that service means serving something greater than yourself.
Unbelievable, Krista. If you could tell our listeners what resilience is to you, what would you say?
My goodness. I know I should have come prepared with that one. But...
No, that's okay. And it doesn't have to be like a concise sentence. I just mean what concepts or words, how would you describe resilience? Because I know I can see it in you. I can hear it in your choosing to look for the good, in your belief that God is giving you increased perspective, in your determination to make sure you don't forget other people who've similarly struggled. But have those things come naturally to you? Do you feel like you've made a conscious effort, maybe a combination of both? How have you found the determination to be resilient, and what does that look like for you?
I mean, I think you summed it up in when you said choosing. It's a choice. I can say that every morning that I wake up, I think of him. I think of our children. I think of the gift of Gus, my husband, who is, my twice in a lifetime, my second hero, the one who brings the boys, to Cub Scouts and teaches them how to make fires and so many things that I could never have done on my own. And I think that God has a purpose for this, and I just need to continue every single day to live a life worthy of Mike's sacrifice, to live a life worthy of others' sacrifice, of the men and women who are living today, who suffer every day. And I'm not sure that I could ever do enough. And I think that's what it is. It's picking myself up and brushing myself off when I'm having a hard day and realizing that it is a gift to be here. And I cannot squander the gift that Mike and Gus both gave me with their service to this nation.
That's beautiful. That is so beautiful. This story, man, I was so quiet the whole time because I was crying.
Oh.
I had a sister-in-law. She binge listens to my show, very supportive. Mm-hmm. She called me the other day to ask, how do you guys get through it? Do you guys ever cry? It doesn't sound like you guys cry. We cry all the time.
We just hit mute.
We just hit the mute button. But, going back to resilience, man, this is a impactful story on so many levels of love, of service, of gratitude. It is a choice. We make a choice every day. And I see one of your strongest skill of resiliency is cultivating the attitude of survivorship or, also having a positive outlook by signifying and looking at those steps of gratitude. When you first started telling your story, you said, be able to see the gifts, the blessings, and serve others. And that is a step of resiliency right there. Mm-hmm. I just think that you are so strong and the ability to do it. And just like you said, it is a choice. We have to make the conscious choice every day. And it's okay when we have our days where we just can't do it, or we get to feel the depression, or we get to feel the grief or the sadness. Yeah. And, there are days where I start the day and I'm thinking, this is a great day. I have all these things, and then something can happen, and sometimes best laid plans, mm-hmm. and then, but yeah. You get up tomorrow and it's like, okay, we've got to handle these things again. And so, and eventually it's like growing those muscles of resiliency, right? It's the same thing. Mm-hmm. Eventually we get stronger, we get better, and we get more accomplished. And, your story is definitely inspiring to me. Thank you for loving the men in your life who have served our country and being able to give back to those who have served and have lost.
Yeah. Krista,
sorry.
No, go ahead. That's what's tricky with pandemic. We can't see each other. We have to risk tripping on each other's words. No, please go ahead, Krista.
I think you'll both probably have the same answer to this question that was asked of me in the immediate wake, probably within the first month and a half. And I sat with, the commander that called me that day to inform me of Mike's accident. His wife and his family are dear to us. And so I was sitting with his wife, Susan, and I said, when is it going to stop hurting so bad? Like, when am I going to be able to breathe again? I can say that I still have moments where my breath is taken from me. But she looked at me and she said, if you could get rid of that pain, right? If the pain could go away, but it meant that you had to give up all the joy that your husband brought to your life, would you do it?
No.
Of course no.
We're both just sitting here shaking our heads no as we bawl in the studio. Krista, I love you. I love your perspective. I love your heart. I know you have helped us. You're clear back east, and I live here in Utah, and you've reached out and helped us in our community to help an airman's family when he was deployed and his wife and children were really struggling. And you know no bounds at all. You just have this love for your God, for your country, for your fellow man. And our listeners are better for having heard it. Michelle and I are better for having heard it. We might need to go home and grab another box of tissues as we rethink today's conversation. But thank you not only for sharing your story, your heart, and your hero with us, but thank you for introducing us to those that we'll get to know in the next 3 weeks. And we look forward to next year. We hope you'll continue to reach out and help us find more of America's heroes and their families to tell these stories about. And we thank you so much for your time and for your beautiful, beautiful heart and this life that you are determined to live with purpose and compassion. It's just so inspiring.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, you
Beautiful
guys,
story.
if you're listening, we know you loved it. So go find the podcast, give us a rating and a review. Watch on social media. We'll be on Facebook and Instagram. Go find Krista's episode. We'll post some great pictures to kind of let you see a little bit of an illustration into her life. And if you or someone you know has faced some real challenges of real life struggles, please reach out to us and let us share that story as well. It does not have to be military, and you do not have to be a widow. We know that there are struggles and challenges in all walks of life, and we'd love to be able to share those stories. So you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Relentlessly Resilient.
Remember, whatever you do today, remember to be kind. You have no idea the struggles other people are dealing with in their lives.